Hey, what's going on? Coach Chris Wilson with the Strong by Design podcast. I'm sitting across from a good friend of ours by the name of Chris Barnard, Mr. Speed, Mr. Power, Mr. Strength, and he knows everything it takes to be an elite athlete because he's been training. He himself is an elite athlete, but he's been training elite athletes for many years. So thank you for joining us today, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
Pleasure.
100%.
So actually, Chris goes back quite a while with founder of Criticalbench, Mike Westerdal. They've been buddies for at least a decade now.
Yes.
Back in the old days.
Back when I was training to play ball, he was, him and Elliot were linked up, and Elliot was my coach.
Yeah, that's Elliot Hulse, who, everyone pretty much knows who Elliot is with Strength Camp, and Chris was part of that group, training at Elliot's place, right? And you're working on. So that's actually what I want to touch on is your background as an athlete. You were like a high-level athlete and looking to try and get into football at a high level.
Yes.
Take us back there a little bit.
So I, out of high school, went to a junior college in Arizona. And as I was playing in Arizona, I was doing pretty well, had some offers. I wanted to go to a bigger school. And while I was playing, I hurt my shoulder. And so that kind of ended my season out there, and what the doctor said, my career, because it was I shattered my collarbone. And as I came back, I needed to look for a coach, not just for football, but also rehabilitation. Yeah. So I came into finding Elliot Hulse. He was about an hour south of us. So we were in the Clearwater area. He was down in St. Petersburg. So we would drive to his gym, and he just coached me over the next year, rehabilitated me, also coached me for what would later be University of Miami, where I went to school. And through that time is when, I was obviously still having that football dream. But I also started to learn business. Before that, I was a personal trainer at LA Fitness. So coaching was just kind of one thing that I always loved to do. Yeah. And through that, when I worked at LA, it was one of those where I was like, oh man, I hate this. Like, no offense. Obviously, there's a need there, but like I was getting, your middle-aged wife who just wanted to complain about her husband, and it was just one of those things.
I can see you standing there too. You're a collared shirt and a clipboard, and you just going.
But I realized I was more of a therapist than an actual coach, and there was a time and place for that. But then when I kind of rubbed elbows with these guys, I was like, oh shit, like these guys. Sorry,
no, that's okay.
Should I not curse?
All right, we can take care of that stuff.
I'll try to keep it minimal. But I started rubbing elbows with them, and I was like, oh wow, so these guys are in the fitness industry. These guys are in coaching, and there's no ceiling above them. That was the other thing too. I was working crazy hours when I was at LA, and I was like, man, I'm not really seeing the return I ultimately want. So when I went to the University of Miami, I actually went pre-med. I mean, the goal was to be able to create a better life for myself. I didn't come from, it's not like I came from the gutter, but I didn't come from much. I guess you could say it was lower middle class or middle class. And so I wanted to have opportunities for myself. So when I went to Miami, it was like, hey, I want to be a doctor. In fact, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. Wow. That was the one thing I wanted to do. Yeah. But as I took my internship, and I was going to school, I did it with Elliot, and that was my first introduction into being a coach and also learning the marketing side of things, online marketing side of things. Sure. And that's around the time that summer was when, Elliot and Mike were working together on Lean Hybrid Muscle, which was later be a big time, ebook. Yeah. And that's when I kind of just kept asking questions, and I would go home, I would coach all his classes for him, which I love to do. But then I would also go home and I would work on this online side of the business. And so I went back to school. I took all the things I learned from those guys. We were in the warehouse. They were upstairs beating away at their keyboards up on the on that. You've been to the first gym.
Oh yeah.
So I had that. I forget what you would call it. It was like a loft. Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. But it was just no AC, fan pointed at you. You would just sit there and grind on the computer for.
Isn't that funny? Go train, sweat, be dead, go eat, and then just
go up there and work on the computer.
Sit on the computer, yeah.
And so I basically did the same thing when I went back down to Miami. I was like, Miami is one of those cities where you could go out any night of the week.
Yeah.
And I was doing that my first year. Yeah. I was enjoying the city.
Which is awesome and dangerous.
It's dangerous at the same time because you can find yourself, it's a crazy Tuesday night. Yep. It's the same thing as like a Friday, Saturday.
Hey, Clevelander.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I told myself, I said, I can do this. Why can't I devote a night to myself as far as my business goes? So getting it off the ground, I started working overnight. And I would say this is the same amount of time I would be in a club. So I would devote a Friday night to, obviously more time outside of that during the week, but I would devote like a Friday night from, 9 o'clock all the way till 3, 4 a.m.
Wow.
And I would just work on building an online presence, an ebook, things of that nature. And then I launched my first product, sold some. I think I sold 2 overnight, and I looked at my ClickBank account.
It's
I had
so exciting, right?
And overnight I had like $144. And for me, a broke college kid,
right?
I'm rich. You know what I mean? Like I just made that out of thin air.
Making money online,
right?
Man.
Completely different hustle because it's not a product inventory type thing. It's my ideas. I'm selling my ideas here.
That's it.
And that's when the game changed for me, and I kind of just went all in. I've always loved to mentor young athletes, so I came back and naturally started to do that with the local community.
Yeah.
Started working and helping out as many as I possibly could. And when I wasn't doing that, it was focused on building more products and learning more and being able to coach. And then the YouTube came alive. And so it's kind of just
and you became like a staple. Obviously, at that time too, Elliot was just growing with his just crazy personality, crazy. Ability, crazy he was like kind of like the perfect weapon when it came to like how to be a YouTube celebrity, and so you're learning from him, and you're still training hard like an athlete. You still actually had aspirations, right? I think even when I first met you in like 2013, you still had some interest in trying to get to the next level, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So after college, I was evaluating my physical capabilities, and I said, I just found myself obviously training in that realm, and obviously football was my passion. My goal going into it was just to play for the University of Miami. I didn't really have interest in the NFL. I don't know why, but it wasn't as a kid the ultimate goal for me. It was University of Miami. Yeah. That was the ultimate goal. And when things didn't work out, the way I wanted them to, I still felt like I had fuel in the tank. And when I got out and I was still training naturally like an athlete, I noticed, oh man, like I'm seeing what they're putting up at these combines, and I'm pretty close to this.
You're jumping as far, you're jumping as high.
Right. Yeah. And so I said, let me go ahead and give this a go. So I actually hired a coach who was a gentleman who was a performance coach, but also was well connected and networked when it came to agents, when it came to getting guys pro days and combines. So I hired him. He went ahead and got me into an NFL regional combine. So for the next 2 years, that year, I prepared myself for a regional combine, which was one here in Tampa. And then the following year, I strategized. It wasn't, that first year was good. I did pretty well, but it wasn't what it's there's a learning curve. And that's why I really commend some of these athletes who come out and do it, because I had the opportunity to have 2. Some of these guys only have 3 months to prepare for 1. You know what I mean? So it was definitely one of those where it required a lot, and it was a learning experience. The lights shine on you, and you got to kind of be ready for it.
I know it.
And so the second year I did the same thing. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have film from a college level except junior college, so things didn't work out in my favor. Yeah. I still put up some amazing numbers. I still got some looks, some talk, stuff like that, but nothing came of it.
Yeah.
But it was definitely one of those where I was able to kind of leave everything on the table.
Right.
and it's one that I was able to walk away from feeling fulfilled that I gave it everything I had. College was one of those things where I don't look back with any regrets. I went and got an education from the school of my dreams, and nobody could take that from me.
Right.
And even though I had some other small time offers. I shouldn't say small time. These are big time to a lot of people, but I chose to go, and I had the courage to go for the school that I truly wanted to go for.
Right.
Things along that way, I know now how I could have done it differently, but at the same time, that's why I work with the young athletes still and try to pay it forward. You know, a lot of the mistakes I made, and just knowing kind of the opportunities you have laid out in front of you, even if you're an underdog, I try to kind of convey that to these guys, and I think they feel that energy from me, and that's why I'm able to connect with them so well.
And it probably feels pretty amazing when somebody that you've worked with and put in the time and the effort, and there's a relationship there, and then they go on and perform well or do well. That makes you just feel amazing.
100%. It's the most fulfilling. Don't get me wrong. The online provides so much opportunity, and I'm able to get feedback from my guys all the time. Oh man, I did your program and I gained 6 inches on my vertical jump, or I got this much faster, this much stronger. Those are amazing emails, but there's no emotional connection to that.
That's right.
When I'm able to take an athlete that I work with one-on-one in person, and here's the thing is, a lot of guys look at my thing and they say, oh, now I'm working with more pros, but for a long time I didn't work with a lot of professional athletes. When I first started off, I worked with a handful of professional athletes that were friends, and I didn't enjoy it. They didn't have that same passion that I shared. So I started working with the high school athletes. And my thing was, hey, I'm going to take on 25 high school athletes, and 23 of them got collegiate scholarships. That to me is the most fulfilling thing still to this day. Yeah. And some people don't understand. It's like, I absolutely love working with the high school athlete. The kid who he's not told that he's going to go to college. He's not the top rank, and be able to see them evolve. Because I always say this, if you're a good coach, you know that if you take a pro athlete, unless they have barring weaknesses or they're a recurring injury, things of that nature, you're not going to make huge leaps and bounds with them. You make the huge leaps and bounds with molding the kid who's like Play-Doh, you know what I mean, who's young and doesn't these things. And while I love working with the elite pro level athletes, it's there's something magical about seeing a boy become a man. You know what I mean? And in that process of just being able to conduct themselves differently when they and
that confidence
shift. Just seeing how they start to take a lot of your mannerisms. So you just I realized the role I'm in and how much carries over to each one of them. So it's such a beautiful thing. It really is.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's great. Yeah, and those are some that I just have to laugh too, because anybody that's kind of like a strength coach or does the type of work that we do, we all kind of went through that LA Fitness time where we were so like not in the right element, feeling like, wow, I'm just like I might as well just be a bartender if I need to hear all these stories and know all these personal details. I want somebody that's results driven, that like has goals and like is consistent and like eats well outside of like coming in and not getting and making any difference.
Well, it's funny because now when I play that role, I love it. Because I'm playing it with somebody more I can identify with, and I know what they're going through. And I truly want to see that young baseball player, young football player, with that challenge he's facing, whether it be breaking up with his girlfriend. It's just a different thing, you know what I mean? And I'm able to kind of, what I believe is, most of those kids have their father to look up to. Me growing up, I had 2 different brothers. I had a brother-in-law from an early age who started dating my sister when I was in elementary school. So he's been my brother for that long. And I have my true brother, and they're both so different dynamics. But I say this because they were that in-between between my father and me. They were that father figure that were a mentor. So I know how important they were to me and how I was able to conduct myself as a man and really grow into who I've become. And I love to be able to be in a position and to have the opportunity to do that to a lot of the athletes I work with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now that's come full circle, it's like I love when they're able to approach me about those things.
Yeah.
You know, I don't go out there and make it known or offer it, but just the way that you're able to operate and your actions speak loud enough that they want to come to you for those other
Absolutely,
things. Yeah,
man.
so it's become really awesome.
Yeah. It's just something that they want to attach themselves to. Sometimes they don't even know why, and maybe you don't, and they just saw a quality that they see, and they're like, this guy can get me to another level, I can tell.
Exactly.
And he cares.
Yeah.
He's emotionally connected. So talking about like being an athlete, obviously two things come to mind for me. You think of somebody that's fast, and you think of somebody that's powerful.
Right.
And there's different ways to train those two things. And so, like, with all your experience and background, just take us through someone that's listening and maybe, like, what's the difference or the similarities between training for speed and power?
Well, I'll just say this: power complements speed. And power. When I think of power, I think of a lot of my methods of jump training, plyometrics, being able to move resistance, whether that be on a barbell or a medicine ball, being able to move that and working down the speed strength continuum. The more force that you're able to apply through the power methods, you're going to see in the speed because you're just applying force as you rapidly turn over. Right. I look at speed as I look at both as an art, where I look at speed as a refined art. And hear me out. Speed, to me, a lot of people might disagree, but I believe that through so many things of an athlete, I guess through the development of an athlete, they develop bad habits.
Yes.
And so a lot of athletes tend to have, through these bad habits, they basically have crappy mechanics. And so I think of speed as just being able to apply the right dose and in a progressive manner to be able to get an athlete to start running properly.
Right.
And
precision.
Precision, exactly. And it's funny because speed is a reaction and a natural movement in for us humans. It's actually, that's one of our defense mechanisms. Right. The eyes are in the front of our head and we are able to run forward. You know what I mean? That's really what we're designed to do. Right. Through what I've noticed I don't know if they're developing bad habits. There's so many different ways why. It could be from sitting down at a desk all day long and muscular imbalances. It could be because they tried learning it. It could be due to muscular weaknesses and muscular endurance. So there's so many factors involved when it comes to that. But I just see mainly if I can kind of start to apply a small dosage of mechanical work to an athlete.
Yeah.
Have them, whether that be an arm pump, setting themselves up, whether that be being able to actually cycle in a top speed, or being able to not cycle in acceleration phase. Just simple things that I can go ahead and start adding to the athlete. I can usually start to see changes immediately where, one of my fortes is taking an athlete and timing them on a 10-yard dash. And then changing one little thing, having them run that same 10-yard dash that they just ran 5 minutes ago, and now it's faster.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's
so it's
awesome.
One of those things where
instant result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speed is a lot about physics. Yeah. And once you understand physics and have that base, I believe you could start to take a athlete and take them through certain mechanical work to improve that. Power, to me, is one of those things that I really highly focus on. A lot of people train speed and then they train strength. Now, I believe absolute strength is going to raise an athlete's ability to generate force, obviously. Right. But I also think there's a bridging of the gap between their sport and the actual weight room lifts, like a max effort lift. Yeah. And that is that realm of power. And that's obviously jump training, plyometrics, things of that. So I like to transition all that strength they're receiving in the gym, because a lot of guys don't know this. I was like, I got to get the 800-pound squat, for me to get. And really, to me, it almost got to a point where it was like my second year in the combine, bringing that up, I didn't focus heavy on loading the back squat up. I focused on being able to transition that, 400 something pounds of squat that I was able to utilize lift, and then transfer that over to power so I can actually move with it dynamically.
Right.
And that's really how I think of power, is that transition where you're actually taking all that strength you have and actually utilizing it to generate quicker, faster force.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of differentiate the two. But I have a good dosage. And it's kind of one of those things where when it comes to an athlete, most of the athletes I work with, they become more explosive, more powerful, have that twitch.
Yeah.
And it carries over to almost any sport.
Yeah.
So
that explosiveness, just that's something I really lacked because I was so like bodybuilder focused.
Right.
If you go back several years, even actually the first time I worked with you guys, I came over to strength camp for that workshop.
Oh yeah,
that was like 5.5 years ago. But I came directly from years of bodybuilding and not training so much as an athlete. And so just stones and tire flips and prowler and yoke and all that stuff was like I knew about it.
Right.
But I wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
And 5 years later, I'm 5 years older now, but in so many ways I'm a better athlete now because I feel like I have more athletic strength, than gym strength.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so anyway, that was just me. It's just the different mindset.
Well,
and the different approach.
We all start with, obviously, in the majority of us start from, hey, we're getting in the gym because we want to look.
I mean, back in the day, our football coaches knew nothing, okay? I mean, you go back to the 80s and 90s when I was going into high school, it was like just show up in the gym. At least they knew squat, bench, deadlift. They knew that. And then, but there was no supervision. You pretty much do whatever you want. And then just go to practice, But now it's so much more, like you said, refined. I mean, now these athletes have everything at their fingertips,
It's crazy.
And these coaches are getting smarter.
Yeah.
With these younger kids, so they're maybe not getting your level of coaching at 13, 14 years old, but they're getting somebody who knows a hell of a lot more than the coaches I had when it comes to what's really going to bring the best out of them.
Absolutely.
And the facilities are getting better.
It's crazy
for these kids.
Big money.
Yeah. Well, that's just it too, right? Money. But so now we've talked about the speed and the power.
Right.
And how does that translate to the aesthetic side? Because most people, when they're training, they have a goal of performance or aesthetics, right? It's like I either want to be able to move better, move faster, be stronger, or I just want to look amazing in my bathing suit and get the girl, whatever. So, talk about that type of that desire or the ways to get that more aesthetic physique, because you have a great physique.
Thank you.
But you leaned in. Thank you. But your physique actually has changed quite a bit over the years. You're much more lean now than you were bigger and bigger and stronger necessarily, but just a bigger.
Yeah, I was bigger. I was trying to play fullback. I was
chubby fat boy. So, but you're still training hard.
Right.
So what's the difference there?
So my fundamental belief was, and this is how I kind of came up with the concept and kind of developed the concept of Athlete Built, which is one of the best selling programs I have. Is I just have twofold: the fundamental belief that I truly like the athletic physique over the bulky bodybuilder. That's just me, and I think there's a lot of people who share that same idea. It's not the huge bulky kind of. I think there's symmetry in the body that can also be that look of a person who can actually utilize their body as well.
Right.
Because most bodybuilders, when they actually end up stepping on stage, aren't the healthiest, and they can't. They're pretty stiff.
they're just they're freakishly muscle bound.
And that huge bulkiness, I just it's just never been something that appealed to me. Like Apollo Creed and Rocky looked better to me than like Arnold and stuff on stage.
Right.
Arnold, I shouldn't say Arnold. Arnold obviously looks great, but some of the guys now, like the Ronnie Coleman, that's kind of unattainable. And I just I don't know. I just always looked at some of the athletes out there and I said that was a much better look for what I would want my body. And then the second fold is obviously being, like we said, being able to move like an athlete.
Right.
I feel like it's my duty to be strong, powerful, and fast, even into my old age. Like this is my body is my temple. It's
right.
what I want it to be able to. I want to be able to utilize it. And no matter what's going to happen in life, I feel like I should be able. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because honestly, you could strip anything away, and that's all I really have, right? So that's kind of my fundamental belief, and so when I was developing it, I was saying, well, what is that kind of chemical makeup? What do you have to do to train like? And obviously, it was just, obviously what you said is my transformation is I had to go up to 250 pounds because I had to kind of sacrifice my body to play that particular position. You know what I mean? It's like if you say offensive lineman who's only 250 pounds, like, well, yeah, you're never going to get too far if you're a 250-pound lineman now in the NFL.
Not in today's world.
They're 300 plus. So for me, I was a 225-pound linebacker. I want to play fullback. I had to get up to 250. So I was a big boy. When I wanted to transition and kind of say, hey, let's put together a workout that's kind of the best of both of these worlds, where let's train speed and power, and then let's train strength, and then let's train some of the aesthetic side of things, where I think you can kind of batch these modalities together.
Sure.
To overall create that athletic physique. And that's really what it came down to. Yeah. So then I was able to still be able to move, still be able to have the speed and power, have that strength of an athlete, but then also look like some of the more refined athletes, and that's really what the concept came down to. Yeah,
like looking like the Brad Pitt and Troy, or the Chris Hemsworth. Well, even he got big for Thor, but still had an athletic look to him. Even though he was fairly muscular, but they not so like The Rock,
exactly,
or like Arnold in his heyday in Predator or something, where it's just like seems like unattainable. It's
exactly.
Just like, if you put on a thong right now, you could go on stage and win a bodybuilding show. Not necessarily going for that.
100%.
Yeah, and that's. Yeah, and so obviously, I didn't even have it in my notes to even discuss it, but nutrition's such a huge part of this.
Yes.
Huge. I mean, it's to not even mention it, I think would be a disservice, because people get fit and get unfit because of their dietary, lack, lack of focus. So what did you do? Because I think it's worth noting. What did you do to really combine that with the training approach?
Yeah, so for me, that's the other thing is when I believe you're training like an athlete and you're trying to get the results of an athlete, you need to fuel your body properly. So it's not about going on some kind of crazy crash diet or anything like that. I believe it's taking where your baseline is at right now, basing it off of where you eat, and being able to, base it off of calories. I'm a big proponent of, fit your macros. Okay. So hitting a certain macros and just having what I call performance macros. I think performance macros are going to be a macronutrient ratio that's going to support you in your training as an athlete.
Right.
And really what that is to me, I just believe in dialing in over time. I don't, it took me a while to get to where I was at, but here's the thing, it was so sustainable. I could get to that point of where I had the nice physique with the six-pack abs and stuff like that, and I wouldn't lose it. I wouldn't gain. It wasn't a crash diet to get to that point. You know, it was an evolution. So it was determining my baseline of caloric intake over, say, 7 days. Mm-hmm. It was taking that average, eating at that average, but now fitting it into performance macros where, it's 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per body weight. It's point. Forgive me, you put me on the spot. It's 0.5 to 0.75 in fat, and then the rest being in carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So kind of, or 0.3 to 0.5 in fat. So it's just kind of one of these ratios where you just kind of want to find where you're at and tailor it towards that. So if I want to gain weight, I do the exact same method.
Yeah.
I basically find my 7 days, my baseline, and I'll increase my calories over time. You know, I kind of believe in that slow method. I had a coach for a very long time. I can't take all the credit for this. Is Dr. Trevor Cash. He's amazing. He's big time in the industry now, and he's done some amazing work. I worked with him and a gentleman who was one of his coaches as well, named Jonathan Montgomery. So they were really good coaches in being able to teach me this, because before that it was very like, slam my calories down, eat no carbs, you know, or
extreme stuff.
Extremes.
Not sustainable, right?
This was very sustainable, allowed me to be able to train. Even if I wanted to cut, it's just a matter of, okay, let me go ahead and start lowering my carbohydrates now, lowering my fats just a little bit, and then being able to, you know, see the changes with every week because I'm so regulated. You know what I mean? And really when I was able to kind of focus in on that, that's when I was able to see huge changes with my physique.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a 90-day thing. This was like over months and months and months.
Correct.
And then you're able to keep it.
Exactly.
Because I think for the last year plus, I've seen you, maybe even 2 years now, you've pretty much been about where you are now.
Yeah,
right?
I've been about this since after football I began the journey. I made huge changes, huge cuts, and then probably around the past 2.5 years.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I'm in a position now where either A, I'm walking around with the physique I want to be, you know, in, whether it be summer or something like that, and I want a six-pack, or because I'm so regulated on my baseline, it only takes me less than 60 days, 90 days to be able to get to where I want to go.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I can enjoy right now. I'm enjoying food. You know what I mean? I'm enjoying whatever I want. I'm eating a little bit more, but I can hop back on it just like that, and it's kind of,
and it's comfortable.
It's comfortable.
And you're not, and your cravings and stuff are met.
I'm not faced with all that. You know what I mean? Where I can't have this or can't. You know.
Yeah, that's good.
When I'm dialed in, obviously you experience that. But other than that, it's just more or less, hey, I'm eating to be able to fuel myself. Right now, I'm actually eating a little bit more intuitive, where I'm just listening. When I'm hungry, I eat. Yeah. When I'm not, and just trying to get good
I've
quality.
been listening to my stomach growl. I can't wait to go to lunch. I had like a power smoothie and like a strip of bacon this morning, and it's not cutting it right now. My stomach's. So tell us more about Athlete Built. And if I'm not mistaken, there's like the 3 phases, right? Of Athlete Built, which is basically what's your goal,
right?
And then I'll let you start there, and then maybe I'll have another question.
Yeah, so I started off last year, and I knew there was predominantly 3 guys that I'm dealing with. And, you know, I wanted them to have the athletic physique. But I also think about this. I have a lot of athletes who I know come to me for like a physique. You know, they want the aesthetics, but they also want to be an athlete. So I had to keep in mind that these guys had to be able to still train for their sport. You know, I still wanted to be competent in what I'm delivering. Every single program, it's funny how the online thing is because it's so saturated now.
Yeah.
And so many guys are just throwing out programs left and right. And a lot of the guys who come into my fold are still surprised because they get a message from me if they want a refund, or they get a message from me if they say it doesn't work. I'm 100% behind everything that I create. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things where I think people have lost that value in what it is. I even get engaged sometimes in comments, and I'll invite them. If you say it doesn't work, I invite you. I'll train you for free for the next 3 months. If you just got to put yourself up here, and I'll spend the time because I'm that confident in what I'm delivering.
That's right.
I didn't just think of this, write it on paper, and send it out and ask you to buy it. I went through it myself. My athletes have went through it, or some athletes I've worked with have went through it. Somebody's went through it. I've tested it out. It's true. And now you're able to deliver it and say, I'm able to deliver it to you guys. Right. So a lot of guys don't realize that. But anyway, with those 3, what I notice is I get a lot of guys who wanted those. There's 3 different things. One, they wanted a little bit more performance. They wanted their to focus on the athletic side of things.
Yeah.
So they want the physique, but they need to focus a little bit more on performance. Then I have the athlete who wants to be an athlete, but he also wants to bulk up. And the first one is Excel, athlete build Excel. Second one is athlete build brick. That's the one who wants to gain, the muscle.
Yeah.
And I believe there's a particular type of way to train for that. And then the third is athlete built sculpt, which I believe is the athlete who wants to really lean down, get that really focus on the physique while maintaining the athleticism. Gotcha. So that's kind of the cutting program, if you will.
Gotcha.
And then the year that had such a success that worked with, it was so awesome to be able to. I never got into the world of, my testimonials came in, hey, my bench increased, my squat increased, my vertical jump increased, my speed, I got faster. Now I got into the world of guys sending me before and afters, even girls.
Yeah.
It's like I dropped 40 pounds and now I have abs. It's like, wow, this is pretty cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While maintaining.
Stuff,
So I loved hearing these transformations where they got bigger, stronger, faster, and they were able to change their physique. And that was kind of the cool element because let's face it, a lot of these high school athletes are motivated by that. A lot of people are, and I shouldn't even just say high school. I should say a lot of guys are starting. I got a lot of middle-aged men who are like, yo, now I'm feeling better than I ever have. I can play with my kids, and I'm looking great.
And I got a photo shoot.
There you go.
Next week, so I have Instagram pics for the next year.
Exactly.
In the world of social media.
Exactly. And so then that was such a big hit, and I think it was just one of those that did so well, that the next year I wanted to follow up with that, and I was like, well, I'm getting guys who are asking me questions, obviously stem from that, and I wanted to fill the need that seemed to be there, the demand, which was, hey, I want to gain weight, but I want to gain kind of lean mass, and I want to get stronger, and I want to be more athletic. So it's kind of all of these combined.
Yes.
And that's when I came out with Athlete Built Savage, which is probably the more advanced program.
Got you.
So a lot of those guys that came out of one of those three, what's the next step? And that's when I came out with that. And that was a really tough program. And that was where, I put our team through it at Strength Camp. Yeah. And just each guy was able to get their own individual results. But for the most part, it was gaining lean mass, gaining strength, and being athletic. So it was pretty cool to see those results as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. So give us a little bit more information about where people listening can find some of this stuff. Give me some links.
So you guys can check out my website, which is overtimeathletes.com.
Yep.
And if I believe in a big proponent of transparency. So if you want to see what I actually do, I pretty much broadcast it all over YouTube.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's youtube.com/overtimeathletes.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the best things is you can actually see. I pretty much give away what I do in all my stuff.
Yeah.
But if you want to go deeper with me, obviously they can check out the programs on the website.
Yeah. And Chris, he has an awesome YouTube channel, terrific videos. Showcasing a lot of the athletes and stuff, not just other coaches, but some of the athletes that you've worked with, right, in your videos and stuff. So, and you can see you doing your speed training and your power training and all this stuff, and get to see how skilled you are with that stuff. Because I've seen you move before. I think I remember I saw you just doing I think it was outside at the old strength camp, not the old, not the first one, but the one that I went to, the second one. And you were in that back parking lot area, and I think you were doing some type of bounding thing. And I was like, wow, that guy leaps like a gazelle. You jumped up and went 10 feet. I'm like, gee whiz, man, he's like springs in his shoes. Yeah. So I was like, man, he's the real deal. So that's awesome.
You gotta walk the talk, right?
You have to,
and
man.
I think that's what a cool bridge is with me as a coach. Me growing up, I was always one of those where if I was getting coached by somebody, I felt like they had to be that person. So I think that's one thing that's pretty cool is not only am I a coach now, but I was an athlete and I could actually, I didn't really I don't want to say I naturally had that. I had to work for that. You know what I mean? So there's a process I learned through experience, through training, all of that. And all I'm trying to do is just put it out there. Because I read, like we talked about, the way I prepared for football was reading Muscle and Fitness magazines.
I know,
and that
man.
was,
Different world.
3 sets of 10 bicep curls. And I thought, oh, wow, now I'm going to run faster. You know what I
that's
mean? But so my thing was now that we have the opportunity with all this technology and all these platforms to be able to share, my biggest thing is, hey, this is 20 years of accumulating, experience and trials and errors and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to give it back to the athletes.
And for followers on Instagram, what's your handle?
At Overtime Athletes.
So basically, just type Overtime Athletes into any platform, and you'll find Chris and his stuff. So it's amazing. Thank you so much. I love the content, love the information. You're the best guy to bring in to be able to talk about speed, power, training like an athlete. So it's been awesome having you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, let's go eat. What do you say?
Let's go.
Thanks for listening to the Strong by Design podcast here with Chris Barnard at Overtime Athletes. It's been amazing, and we'll talk to you in the next show.